So thanks, ECIS, for having us. Thanks to the group, this special interest group, Research Informed Schools, for leading these kinds of things. And a special thanks to Jeremy and Tom for being willing to jump on and talk about what they're doing. So take it away, Tom.
Yeah, I'm Tom. I'm just going to introduce Jeremy and moderate some questions that might come through. And I didn't look at everybody on the list, but I saw quickly a few names, and maybe at the end we can have some discussion, especially if you're interested in this topic, or maybe have some thoughts or future questions and things like that. So I'll quickly introduce Jeremy and then hand over to him. He's a friend, a close colleague here at Leysin American School, and he's also a resident scholar. And if you don't know what resident scholars do, they're kind of pursuing their own projects with support from the school. And he's going to discuss his specific project about focusing on assessment practices that measure critical thinking and creativity in our makerspace. And it's a bit of a tricky one because, while teachers don't have a lot of experience measuring critical thinking and creativity, assessment is an important part of this. And Jeremy is doing some action research related to that. He is teaching all sorts of things: coding, science. We call it Innovation Lab, but it's makerspace. He's worked in every country in the world, I guess: US, Taiwan, Singapore, Indonesia, Vietnam, China, Switzerland, and I think he's lived around the world too. So he's a very international person, and he's working on his PhD based out of Taiwan, remotely, obviously, focusing on systems thinking and creative and critical thinking, which we're going to hear about today. So I think it's about 15-20 minute presentation, questions and discussions at the end. And yeah, questions in the chat, and I will say them at the end for you, Jer, and I'll pick them through. If there's similar ones, I'll just group them together. Off to you.
Okay. Oh, thanks, Tom, for the introduction. And Tom is, of course, a friend and a colleague, and we work really closely together. And in a way, he helps with my idea, exploring creativity and critical thinking in Innovation Lab. So that's my topic of today. So I'm going to go on with it. So nowadays, the main point of education is not to teach reading, writing, and arithmetics, but it's to teach how to use thinking skills, such as not only creativity, but also qualified problem-solving skills, scientific and technological literacy skills, because there are skills that require sustainability and lifelong education in addition to basic education. In the lifelong process, it's possible to say that learners are faced with many real-life problems. The goal is to guide learners to become skilled in acquiring skills to solve problems. So let's see here. Let's go on the next slide. Okay, so Innovation Lab, let's get an overview of what is Innovation Lab. So Innovation Lab is a place to create, build, and craft. It is a space where students can use tools to develop creative projects, developing knowledge independently and collaboratively. It's common to refer to as makerspace, hackerspace, fab lab, tech space, and so on. It's simply a place that encourages hands-on learning by offering students supplies, materials, tools, and equipment to think, create, share, and grow. Innovation Lab is crucial for STEM education as they enable development of 21st century skills like creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration, and also enhancing students' confidence. Okay. All right. Oh. Okay. So innovation labs are hubs of innovation, creativity and collaboration, but it also starts with cultivating the right mindsets, embracing a growth mindset, interdisciplinary learning skills, student agency, collaboration, which allows students and teachers to explore, experiment, and innovate. At its core, innovation is not simply physical spaces filled with tools and resources. They are places to encourage collaboration, problem solving, critical thinking, and creativity. Innovation Lab embodies a philosophy that emphasizes the process over the product. So, so we have the left brain and the right brain. The left brain, of course, of logic, and the right brain, of course, is creativity. Now, I have developed a sort of a rubric, and the rubric is to create a sort of assessment, not only self-assessment, but also formative and summative assessment. It's because the role of education and critical thinking is increasing and growing, as educators should foster independent thinking rather than just impart knowledge to children. However, rather than the issue of resistance to change or innovation fatigue, teachers have a lack of implementations really stems from clarity of what is creativity and critical thinking actually means, entails in their daily teaching practices. So it leaves teachers to, in a way, needing clarification how these big concepts translate into teaching and using it as a assessment. So if creativity and critical thinking are both inherently important in developing global problem solvers and further represent the goals of educating young minds, then classroom assessment must be designed to measure students' development of these processes. Okay. Ooh, it's warm in here. All right, so now, usually critical thinking creativity is sort of ambiguous and there's no clear definition. So I have borrowed, in a way, the definition of critical thinking and creativity. So definition of creativity is borrowed from Guilford in 1950. Now there's four characteristics of creativity that he has come up with. Fluency is the ability to think of many possible ideas. Flexibility is the ability to diverse ideas and possible different perspective. Originality is the uniqueness of solutions. Elaboration is the ability to work out different details of ideas and solution. I added another sort of research, and it's needed in the definition of creativity is the process, the act of turning new and innovative ideas into realities, and also usefulness. There needs to be a value of an idea or solution, and it needs to serve a purpose in society. And these two are from Runco and Jaeger in 2012. Okay. Now, the definition of critical thinking is done by Paul Ehlers and Ehlers in 1997. Okay, critical thinking is essential to better decision making in both personal and professional life. The 8 universal standards of critical thinking by Paul Ehlers includes having a purpose, solving problems, making assumptions, having a point of view, relying on evidence, being shaped and constructed, and making interpretation. These standards can be used to question assumptions, evaluate evidence, and consider different perspectives for well-reasoned conclusion. Developing critical thinking skills can enhance creativity, decision-making, and problem-solving. Okay, so here we go. Now, this can't rely on this rubric for critical thinking and creativity. So you need to have some sort of implication of strategies. And so we, as Innovation Lab, we use project-based learning, and we try to use a sort of a hands-on, human-centered sort of problem solving and needs. So it needs to be authentic in providing open, complex problems that requires creative solution. And also strategies such as brainwriting kind of like brainstorming, generating ideas separately, then meeting to assess and refine. The rubric is to help to tailor to assess creativity and critical thinking skills. Also, design thinking model. It promotes human-centered design by fostering empathy, creativity, collaboration, and leading to solutions that better meet needs and desires for users. So also using makerspace, which is the innovation lab, and digital fabrication, which is using 3D technology and also laser cutting. Okay, so, ooh, jeez. So creativity and critical thinking are among the most important skills of young people and should acquire in 21st century society. The research literature and policy discourse have identified creativity and critical thinking as crucial competency for personal and professional fulfillment and active citizenship, innovation, economic development, and social inclusion. So it plays a key role in fostering a better education. So assessing critical thinking and creativity in students in this makerspace movement is indeed a crucial aspect that requires attention and innovation. So traditional assessment method often fail to capture the essence of these skills, which are essential for future success in a rapid evolving world. Here are some these are the strategies that we have come up with in Innovation Lab. And that concludes the presentation. Hopefully it was within 15 minutes, everybody.
Yeah, like 10.
Fantastic.
So that's great. Yeah.
Even better.
Yeah. Egosh, you put a good question, or it's not a question, it's more of a statement. And I would be interested to hear, why most teachers are fearful of assessing these skills, or, open it up to discussion, obviously, Jeremy too. But his statement is that most teachers are fearful of assessing soft skills, but why, I guess?
Yeah, because like I said, the definition is ambiguous, it's nebulous, and there's no clear, definitive, definitive definition of what is critical thinking and creativity. So how do we assess something that we are unsure of? And so that's why the rubric is designed based on research, based on literacy, and based on a bit of academic sort of determination of what it is. Yeah. Did I answer your question? Hopefully.
Yeah, I'm just reading some comments. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I follow up with that? Is it important for the like what the numbers turn out to be on the rubric, or is it more important that there's just interaction with some of the ideas that are on the rubric?
I think the rubric is more important for students to self-assess themselves and realizing as independent thinkers and independent learners, they need to come up with a mindset of what the problem is, how do you solve it by looking at multiple perspectives, deducing from all the information, conclude based on what they know, what their understanding and their interest is, finding a conclusion, finding a perspective or insight, and from there, using that insight to solve that problem.
Yeah.
Or situation.
Okay, I see all the questions in the chat, so thanks.
Yeah, it goes, but there's no 1 + 1 = 2 in creativity and critical thinking. So that's it's tough for teachers if it's not cut and dry to decide on things. So yeah, it's tricky. Matt's saying, if we don't have creativity on the rubric and signal that we will reward it, can we expect students to take creative risks. Mhm.
Yes, yes. We can Matt, can you clarify that question in a way?
I'm worried. I always feel like the kids feel like they can't be creative unless we sort of provide a carrot. So have you found by putting it actually on your rubric that you have incentivized it and you've seen more creative risk taking in your observations of the classroom?
Yes, I have. So yeah, there are some examples of risk taking. Students will make mistakes, and this is an environment where it's safe, where they could explore their thoughts and collaborate with with their peers, with teachers, and talk about what their perspective is and share. And each of us is there as a kind of a small community of sharing ideas and sharing what they think should happen in a way in a certain situation. So it is Innovation Lab should be a safe place to share ideas and take risks. When they make mistakes in designing or making, they they realize the mistakes, and it's okay because they can they can they can think about it, and they could iterate design thinking and design it better for next time. So it is a culture of risk taking in the Innovation Lab.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah.
Aaron's asking, what role does learner self-reflection play in terms of the soft skills in the Innovation Lab class?
Oh yes, yes. So there are phases. There's idea the idea development phase or idea generative stage. They could do it independently or they could do collaboratively. And so um, once they have gone through multiple perspective and narrowed down into convergent thinking and narrowed down the ideas into a certain insight, and they could start to develop that idea into more of a physical object and producing a craft or a project that will instill the ideas. There is a reflective part in each of our units where the kids have to think about what they could improve on, what are the deficits of their project or the process, and to produce an alternative solution in written form, of course, and towards maybe making the product better or solving the problem in a more effective way. So there is a reflective part in it. Yeah.
Another question here from Alexander. It's good because he's asking what challenges we've encountered, whether it's other colleagues or other departments or admin or students or parents or whatever, and just the way that we're running the Innovation Lab, and I guess in this style of assessment and alternative techniques, I guess.
Oh, that's a good question. Thank you for the question. We have not come up with, I don't know, Tom, maybe you could chip in on this. We have not come up with any challenges. Right now, currently, I am running a sort of well,
Like a pilot.
a pilot study. Thank you. A pilot study to assess what the kids, based on, let's see here, based on the units that we have here. Let me see if I could show you. Okay, based on the units, the topics that we have done: designing shoes, electronic, designing locally, passionate project. So all of this we are taking in and getting information. And so the pilot test is using the rubric of creativity and critical thinking and using that as a pre-assessment questionnaire and after the semester, before the semester ends, we will do a post-assessment questionnaire and group interviews. And of course, students' artifacts will be evidence of what they have learned and how they have solved the issues in what way or process. Okay.
So I think to go back to the question, if you have that evidence, then that helps with the argument for resistance from parents or admin or colleagues. And in a way, we're lucky that we have this kind of elective side subject. If we had math, science, history, English, these more standard subjects in class or sorry, in schools, then it would be harder to change the previous ways, because the ways for Innovation Lab and Makerspace are kind of developing still, and they're quite flexible and adaptable. We're able to have some more freedom, and people don't maybe question it as much. It's not to say it's perfect. We're working on improving it, but yeah.
Also, kids are having projects from other subjects, and they're using Innovation Lab space to also produce some sort of physical products that fits in their, I guess, assignment in other subject and topics. So in a way, they are connecting ideas and also tools and space in order to accomplish, both Innovation Lab and also their subjects assignments. So there is a bit of back and forth, not really assigned to the students, but intuitively the students are making the connection.
Yeah, we would hope that these would be transferable skills, and teachers would
Yes.
notice, wow, these students are more creative than other students because they have Innovation Lab to maybe foster it on the side. There's lots of good questions coming in, and my chat keeps flipping back. Nicola is asking about some examples. Kunali, I'll get you in a second. I see your hand up. So yeah, maybe some concrete examples of what you can, you showed some just then actually, and you mentioned quickly in the presentation, but like if you think of one or two students that you're like, yes, that was a great creative example, and we were able to foster them to think critically by setting it up in this way. Yeah.
Okay, so examples of students' work or examples of how we deliver content, or is that right? Which one?
Just do you have examples of what this looks like in the classroom is the question.
Okay. So we do have examples. Let's see here. So currently we're doing, in the last unit, we're doing passion project. So so maybe I could click in here and show you. Can everybody see the?
Yep.
Okay. So the passion project is based on what the student's interest is, and they will come up with. Okay, this is running a bit slow. Sorry.
Bandwidth is at a maximum.
Okay. So here, so they come up with a passion project, and in a way they have to generate ideas, multiple ideas, either based on their interests. I mean, I'm sure they have multiple interests, so they have different boxes for the interests, and we encourage them to connect them to different subjects, maybe art, maybe environment. It doesn't have to be a course or academic subject. It could be related to, the environment or society, and they come up with the ideas. And each of these, maybe environment right here, and each of these topic will have different multiple of perspective or ideas. Okay, so they need to come up with different ideas, either independently or in group. So, so there's they need to narrow it down with all these ideas. So there's a divergent of thinking of brainstorming or brainwriting of different choices, and then narrow it down to make a single choice. So, and they need to decide on the project and defining the passion. Okay. Of course, they need to do planning. They need to have resources, additional information, designing, additional resources kind of based on, well, connects to critical thinking. They have to not only determine the right validity of the resources, but they have to be, in a way, critical thinking is more than this looking at resources and looking at the validity and reliability of resources. But it also have to, it's a mind, it's a thought. It's a philosophical thought of looking at information and being open-minded to different perspective, and be analytical to the information, and also to be flexible. Okay, so there's a reflective piece. I think Aaron wanted to know what are the reflective pieces that's part of the project. So examples. Okay. Of kids' work. Okay. So again, so in this unit, the kids were making fountains, water fountains. So this particular example is kids were designing water fountains. So they use digital fabrications. Digital fabrication is great because they could iterate and change design whatever they can based on different feedback from the peers, from teachers, and so it helps in the design process. So there's other examples right here. Where is it? Okay. Okay. Oh, I guess I have left that out in here. So, oh.
Yeah, it's okay. Oh, there's a shoe on you.
Okay, so designing shoes, they work in groups. So they are utilizing different skills from each individual. So one person was really good at design and drawing, so we had the design drawing right there, and the other members and they all helped in building and designing sort of a Japanese shoes. They wanted to make this Japanese shoes more comfortable. Instead of having the foot placed on a hard wooden board, they wanted to have a cushion, and they wanted to have also a modern look to, I guess, the traditional Japanese shoe. So they designed it and made it colorful and all. You can see the color, the different design, and the fabric of the color and the cushion of it. So that is a few of the examples. There are many more.
Yeah, I think generally by giving kids some freedom of choice and letting them explore some of these projects, we try and set them up in a way that it's a little more open-ended. They're now thinking a bit more creatively because we're not limiting their creativity by telling them this is what they need to do. And we're also getting to think a bit more critically because we're not the ones telling them this is how they have to build it or make it or whatever. They've got to find solutions to problems along the way that are kind of tricky and figure that out. So that's a big piece, is just setting it up in a way that it's a little more open and flexible, and then the creativity and critical thinking can flow.
Right.
I'm conscious of the time. We have 15 minutes, which is great. Kunali, you had your hand up, so I'll go to you first.
But it was a pretty simple question related to what you had just mentioned, Tom, about not getting too much resistance from others because this is still a pilot and it's sort of almost extracurricular, not integrated with the curriculum. That was my main question, actually, line of questioning was that, do you see this being more integrated than just being on the periphery?
Well, we teach this as a class, so it is in a kid's timetable, but you're right, it is not a traditional 7 subjects, it's the 8th one or whatever. I would love that. But not yet. It's not there yet. Jared, if you want to add.
Yeah. But the skills that we are teaching in this course really is transferable skills into other classroom. And when you're talking about creativity and critical thinking, those applies to also transferable skills to other subjects, you know. So I think it's an important course and an important space, innovation lab, to foster these sort of skills and being a risk taker and making mistakes and learning from their mistakes. So.
Oh, I'm not questioning the importance of this. I'm just wondering if this sort of gets transferred as a format into the more traditional subjects. That's what I was wondering if that's something that you see this going down the line.
Yeah, we would hope eventually it might bleed over and there's some, yes. It's not there at the moment, it's still early days, but yeah.
Right.
Every time I scroll down on my chat, it goes back to the first message, which I don't know why it's doing that. Leslie, I think you asked a question, but I can't find it here.
Leslie, why don't you just go ahead and ask?
Yeah, sorry. It keeps just as I'm about to read it, it
We're
bumps
not
back.
that many people. We can just
Yes.
check our questions.
She said, what do your creativity indicators assessed on the rubric look like?
Okay. Let's go back to.
Was it on the 4th?
Yeah, I think
slide maybe, or a version of it was on the 4th slide, but maybe you can just clarify for her what the indicators that you're looking for, or how you're assessing things. Yeah.
So these are the characteristics of both critical thinking and creativity. So in critical thinking, there's explanation of topic. Just to give you some clarification, this is a rubric, so it's scaled, of course. And since I didn't want to post, all of it, it's too much of text on the screen, I just gave you the characteristics that we are looking for. So the critical thinking is based on, of course, on research, explanation of topic of argument, ability to break the topic down to help others to understand, consideration of previous assumptions. So looking at multiple perspectives and then breaking it down into your own perspective. Getting evidence, selecting, using information to investigate this expert's point of view. And then, of course, narrow it down to what is your position based on your evidence, experience, reasoning, and then concluding, summarizing what you have learned. That's part of the reflective piece. And then you have the right side, the creativity. Fluency is the ability to think of many possible solutions, flexibility to connect with different subjects, so interdisciplinary, elaboration, ability to work in details of idea and solutions, originality, uniqueness of the ideas and the process, usefulness. I think I went over this. Yeah.
So when you get a kid's project, you would give them feedback on these pieces.
Right. Like I said, we're just doing a pilot study. And so this is more of a pre and post assessment. So in a way, this is the kids' self-assessment. And so when they go through the survey, they are looking at these characteristics and they are assessing themselves and how they have learned throughout before we did it before the units, and then now the year is almost over. We're going to use this as a post-assessment survey.
Another question here from, and hopefully that answers your question, Leslie. Hey, Ghosh, you had a question. I might get you to read it out or summarize it.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I think you pretty much answered that one. As I was trying to explain myself, many times I felt that so difficult to evaluate, especially the creativity. I had students that maybe they thought they couldn't be creative, and with different projects, they go from 0 to 3 level in a scale of 0 to 10 in terms of creativity. And that was a huge step for them. But other students that maybe were more creative and always get better results on the rubric, but the effort was less than the ones that they just scrapped from 0 to 3. So will you will you leave the task to evaluate, to assess the students in terms of creativity to teachers or students themselves, Jeremy?
Right now, they're evaluating themselves. Probably next year, we will use this as a evaluation, not only for self-assessment for the students, but also peer assessment and assessing them each other. And then, of course, the teachers will assess them using these rubrics. One of the things that, like you said, you mentioned that students don't know about creative, if they are being creative or not. So it's kind of intuitive, but it's also, creativity is not about being yourself creative, but learning from other people, really. And so one of the things that helped was a strategy called brainwriting. So if you brainwrite, let me give you, so you can see that when we work together, we try to, when we work together in a group and collaboratively, we have brainstorming sessions and everybody's talking and nobody's really listening, right? Or someone is kind of fearful of being, castrated based on their ideas, right? So brainwriting is a different way. It's generating ideas independently, right here, and then sharing the ideas, regrouping and evaluating, discussing each other's ideas. So creativity is learning from others also, and getting ideas from others. Okay. So this is a much better way in brainstorming and collaborating.
Paul, I might leave your questions for the moment. I got one from Dan, and then we'll see where we're at. Unless Dan, you want to come on and ask it, but I can also read it.
Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks, Jeremy. This is super interesting. I really appreciate it. It was just such a cool subject to teach. It's got to be really fun to see, how kids kind of react to this kind of stuff when they're used to a different style of education. So this question kind of comes from someone else that I worked with quite extensively in the past in this kind of area, who was frustrated with the novice effect. These kids have never done any of this stuff before, so how can they be creative with something that's brand new to them? And so the question was about the balance between creativity, or expecting kids to be creative, and them developing the skills that it would take to that might lead creativity. So it was like, if a student has never picked up a hammer before, Are you expecting them to be creative with that hammer right away, or are you expecting them to get really proficient with the hammer so they can get that nail pounded in straight? And then just a little side kind of funny thing that happened when I was teaching a similar class is we were working, pounding things in. And then I don't know exactly how this kid had this aha moment, this amazing aha moment. But at one point, I heard a kid say, "Wow, you can take the nail out." And it was like, wow, that's really cool. Like, that was kind of creative. Like, of course, people that work with hammers know you can do that, but this kid had never worked with the hammer, and he realized, wow, you can get the nail out. So just kind of interesting, like, how do you balance learning how to do the thing versus being creative with the thing?
Yeah, you know, a hammer is a tool, right, to use to hammer nails, but there's more than one way to use a hammer. There's 100 ways, right? So yeah, they have to experience it first in order to expand. So in a way, in the beginning, if a kid have not used a hammer before, as as an example, they have to use it. They have to experience it, and then from there, they could figure out new ways of using it. So yeah, it starts with experience. It starts with initial experience.
I'll add to it, Dan. We have thought a lot about that too. Like, we need kids to be proficient in order to be creative at some point. But we're trying to set it up with some early projects that teach them the skills, but also have scope for creativity. So it's like low floor, everybody can start, but you can also go to the high ceiling of any level of creativity. You could do the basic table, or you could do the very creative table, or whatever. And trying to scale it like that so that there's no limit on what they can do helps. They learn the skill, and then when they become proficient, they can enhance it and make it more creative at the same time. I'm conscious of the time.
I think
Chris?
we should probably wrap it up. It's a really nice spot actually too, because Dan used to be here at Leysin American School and started off the makerspace at that time. It's had various names, but the innovation lab moving forward then with Tom, and now with Jeremy. John, who's walking right now to his next activity probably this afternoon, is involved in the same I guess general area, Kunali, of these courses that are a little bit more pushing on the skills. It's more obvious that they're looking at skills than content. I love how the rubric, Jeremy, is all those things that are not any of them are saying like make a pair of shoes and the shoes are done and so on, right? It's just all of the skills that are really highly transferable. And I just want to, even though Tom wanted to not have me say too much, I just have to that it, just because you can't count it or assign it a grade or make comparisons or put people in buckets or whatever it is, it doesn't mean it doesn't count, right? It's really, really huge stuff. And so, Jeremy, it'll be interesting to see how far you take this beyond the students looking at it and kind of seeing how they feel about how they're doing, because you'll have to be cautious actually about using it more than that. If it becomes a teacher assigning a grade on creativity, I don't know, that doesn't sound, it sounds like there's some holes that you could step in along the way anyway. But it'll be really interesting to see what you do with it next year. Tom, thanks for hosting. Thanks everybody for coming and making time. I know things are always really busy. Yeah, thanks again to ECIS for giving us the opportunity to host exactly these types of things. I think ECIS folks, some of us will be seeing you very shortly in London at the upcoming conference. So we're looking forward to that. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. Wonderful.
Thanks, Jared. Yeah, and thanks everyone for joining.
Bye-bye.
See you, Dan.
Bye.